we'll have time because
Shoot.
I don't think it will go for the whole 45.
You know, I think the
minutes.
last time we did maybe 40 minutes, it was over. I don't really...
Yeah. And I actually just started broadcasting, and I'm so sorry.
There we go. Yes.
Welcome, everyone. Accidentally clicked the button a little too soon, but thank you for being here. This is the Virtual College Exploration Program in partnership with Colleges That Change Lives. This is the Denison University info session. I'm going to kick us off with some housekeeping items first, in case you haven't heard these yet. We do have a few more sessions with CTCL through this evening, so if you're interested in seeing who else is presenting for the rest of the night, feel free to check back on our schedule. When you do register for these sessions, you get a barcode in that confirmation email, and know that that barcode is not necessary for any of the virtual events that you participate in. We are recording all of these sessions and posting them to our website shortly after the session concludes. So whether you want to rewatch a session you participated live in or watch one you may have missed, just check back on our website for those recordings. And then finally, you will be able to see Caitlin and hear her from Denison, but unfortunately she can't see or hear you all. This is webinar style format. So any questions you have throughout the presentation, feel free to type those in the Q&A box. And we have Chris here who will be kind of monitoring those and typing answers, but then also leaving some time at the end for some live Q&A for the entire audience. So without further ado, we're going to start a little early. Caitlin, if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen and take it from here. Thanks so much for being here.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Just give me one moment. I'm going to share my screen and get things going. So here we go. My name is Caitlin. I am one of the Associate Directors of Admission at Denison, joined by my colleague Chris, and we're really excited to tell you, or I'm really excited because Chris won't be speaking today. I'm really excited to tell you about Denison. If you have questions, Chris is going to answer as many of those as possible, but we'll save some time at the end in case there are questions that we think everyone might want to hear the answer to. So Denison University, I'm not going to talk so much about statistics today. I'm going to try and tell you a little bit more about who we are as an institution, and there will be some statistics like this one, like this slide, but for the most part, I'm going to try and give you insight into the student experience, give you some examples from our students, and hopefully give you a pretty good picture of who we are. So I said we're not going to use that many statistics, but this slide is one of the heavy statistics slides that I'm going to share today. So we are a four-year residential college located in Granville, Ohio. On the next slide, you'll see a map of the entire United States in case you're not really sure where Ohio is, but it's in the Midwest towards the east. Granville, I'll talk to you a little bit about that, but we're about 2,300 students. So it's pretty much, I think, a sweet spot of students, not too small like some of our liberal arts college peers, but big enough, but not too big. So it's kind of small enough that you'll recognize people as you walk around campus, but big enough that a lot of the seniors I've been doing this presentation with say that there are lots of seniors that they don't totally know, which they kind of like meeting new people all the time. Founded in 1831. You can read this, but this is some of our really important statistics. So next slide is about our location. As I mentioned, we are in Granville, Ohio. You can see the slide. On this slide, you can see where we are in the continental United States, and we're pretty much right in the middle of Ohio. Granville is a small Midwestern town based off of Granville, Massachusetts. So it really feels a little bit more like New England to me. I'm actually coming to you from Los Angeles, California. That's where I live. And this is not what I thought a small Midwestern town would look like when I first started working at Denison. You're pretty much looking at the main drag here. There is another side of the street, and on the other side of the street are some more shops, but Granville is a really great little town. There are quite a few restaurants. There's a great frozen yogurt shop, and this is about, depending on where you live on campus, a 5 to 10 minute walk. So our campus is located just behind these shops up on the top of a hill. Students use Granville in a variety of ways, and we have, I think, a great relationship with the town of Granville. So faculty and staff, some of them live in Granville, but everything that we do at Denison is open to the residents of Granville. And so, well, typically in a more traditional year, there is a lot of interaction on our campus with the residents of Granville. I love this little town, and I think it really gives our students a lot of the benefits of a small town. At the same time, though, we are located just pretty close to Columbus. So that first slide said 25 minutes from Columbus. I like to say we're about 25 minutes from the airport, maybe a little bit further to actual downtown Columbus, kind of depending on where you're going in Columbus, not because of traffic, let's say like where I live, but just kind of depends on where you're going. But we're within about 45 minutes. And I think Columbus is a great spot. As you can see here, there are over 2 million people, excuse me, in Columbus. We're the 14th largest city in the United States. And we are, Columbus is the capital. So there is a lot going on in Columbus. I love Columbus, and I love that Denison is so close, and a lot of our students do as well. So what is Columbus like? What is there to do there? Well, there are a lot of great restaurants, so students often say that, especially when their parents come into town, they might go into Columbus to try some of those out. There are many sports opportunities, so hockey, there is the Ohio State University in Columbus, so it's not professional sports, but it kind of is. So lots of opportunities if you are into athletics, the arts. There's a vibrant theater and art scene in Columbus, as well as many businesses are located in are centralized in Columbus. Because of Ohio State, it's kind of funny to mention another university when talking about Denison, but I do think it's important to mention that Ohio State is there, because what that means for you as a student is that there are a lot of young people. And Columbus is changing a lot, and I think it's changing for the better. Every time I go to Columbus, there is just more to do, more restaurants to try, and I think it's just a really great city. And again, we're pretty close, so our students definitely take advantage of Columbus in a lot of different ways. As I mentioned quickly at the kind of beginning of this slide, we're about 20 minutes from the airport, so it's pretty easy to get from the airport to Denison, and between Granville and Columbus, there are also quite a few different opportunities in terms of shopping and restaurants and things to do. A question I often receive is, well, how do I get to Columbus? What's the transportation like in Ohio or from Granville? All students at Denison can have a car. Depending on where you're coming from, you may not bring your car to campus, and that's fine. You will probably know a friend with a car, at least one, if not many other people that have cars. Denison also offers shuttles, especially into Easton, which is one of those kind of shopping and restaurant areas that I alluded to. We host events and we'll provide transportation. There are rental cars on campus, and Lyft and Uber exist in Columbus. It might take you a little while if you get one in Granville, but there's that too. So it's not that difficult to get into Columbus. And I think that that's one of the things, our location is one of the things that I believe make Denison really interesting, because a lot of our peers are a little more remote or a lot more urban, and we're kind of the best of both worlds. So now that you know kind of where we are, who are we? So we at Denison consider ourselves a highly relational college. What does that mean? Well, that means that if you're a student at Denison, you're going to create strong bonds with other students, with faculty, and with staff. I'm going to talk more about mentorship on the next slide, but this is a place where people care about each other. I feel a very strong sense of community at Denison, and I live thousands of miles away from my colleagues and the students there. This is a place where faculty really care about you, and again, I'm going to focus on that a little more on the next slide. But this is a place where we're very intentional, about creating those relationships and making sure that this is a place where we can foster strong relationships. I always like to mention on this slide, our president, Adam Weinberg. I think he's a really fantastic example. He's someone that walks around campus, and he really sets a great example that really bleeds down into the rest of the community in terms of that relational approach that we have at Denison. What are some of the relationships that you'll have? So this is about mentorship. So I'm going to talk a little bit about faculty and the relationships that you'll have with faculty. So a couple of years ago, I don't exactly remember how many years ago this poll was, I think 2, Gallup did a poll on mentorship across college students in the United States, and they found that 22% of students find a mentor in college. We did the same poll at Denison, and we found that 92% of our students find a mentor. So what does that look like? What is a mentor, or how do students find them? And I'm going to use some of my student examples from students who I've done this presentation with. Some students, they found mentors very early. Maybe a professor was an advisor, their first advisor, and they really connected with them. And that's the person with whom they've really created and maintained a strong bond over their however many years, 4 years in these cases, because I'm speaking about seniors at Denison. You know, sometimes it can take a little bit longer to find that true mentor, but I think that these faculty at Denison are at Denison because they want to create relationships with students. They want to get to know you as a person, and they want to help you both while you're at Denison and after. So this is a place where it's not uncommon for faculty and students to remain in touch long after students graduate from Denison. Class sizes at Denison really help with this because our class sizes are very small. You're going to get to know your professors. There are no TAs. And it's not uncommon. One of my students with whom I do this presentation frequently said on their visit to Denison as a prospective student, so when they were just like you, they walked into a classroom and were really shocked that the professor started class by just kind of doing a general check-in with students, asking them, oh, how did your football game go? Or I know you had an interview with this company. And that's something that really attracted that student, this current student, to Denison 4 years ago. So those are the kinds of relationships that you're gonna have. You will probably meet with your professors in office hours, sometimes when you need help and sometimes just when you wanna chat. Coffee shops, you'll go to coffee with them, you'll eat with them in the dining halls. And so this is a place, again, where you're gonna get to create those really strong bonds. I kind of skipped over on the relational college piece, relationships with peers, and some of the ways that we foster those at Denison, because I forgot, so I apologize. But those relationships really start quite early. As soon as you're admitted to Denison, one of the first times that you'll have the opportunity to connect in a hopefully in-person way when you are coming to Denison, although this year the first part was virtual, is a June orientation. So it's a pretty short orientation when you can get to know people. Not everyone comes to that, but then in August, everyone comes to orientation together. And that's really when some of those bonds start. You'll get to know other first-year students as well as upper-class students who are leading the orientation. And then through that and advising circles and a lot of the different student organizations and teams, you'll get to really create strong bonds with your classmates and fellow students. So that's a little bit more on the student relational aspect, and I'll talk a little bit more about it on some of these other slides. Next, excuse me, innovative academic programs. So Denison is, as I mentioned at the beginning, and hopefully as you know since you decided to join us here today, we're a liberal arts college, but we have some pretty innovative academic programs, as this slide would suggest. So we have many traditional liberal arts majors: biology, economics, communication, English. Those are all very popular majors, just like they are at many other liberal arts colleges. But in the past few years, we've added quite a few new programs. Some of those programs, I'm not going to name all of them, but global commerce, which is kind of the liberal arts approach to an international business style program. Financial economics is one of our new concentrations that if you're really interested, for example, in finance, you might find yourself on that track. Health, exercise, and sports studies is one of them. This year we added global health. So this is, again, you can find these programs at other liberal arts colleges, but all of them probably aren't going to exist on other liberal arts colleges. And I really love this aspect of Denison because I believe that It's not super common to be at a place where where programs are being added as frequently as they are. So again, about 5 years ago, we added global health, exercise, and sports studies, as well as a few others. And then this year, we just added 2 more programs. And I think it's really great to be at an institution that evaluates itself and then makes changes. Sometimes things in academics or in academia can take quite a while to change. And I love that we don't rest on our laurels at Denison. We always are looking at how can we be better? How can we better prepare our students once they are out to be global citizens of the world? So the Mitchell Academic Center. So our facilities are incredible at Denison. This is the Mitchell Athletic Center. This was built, I believe, about 10 years ago. I'm really testing my knowledge of time with my colleague here listening. But you can see, this is just a little bit of a sample of our athletic center at Denison. So on the left, that's the general weight center. That is open to everyone. That is open to residents of Granville, all faculty, staff. It's open from pretty early in the day to late in the evening, and you can go in there whenever you'd like. The middle picture is the entrance, and then the right is our Pride. It's the pool, which also you can't really see it, but there's a hot tub there too. So just an example of one of our facilities. A little bit about athletics at Denison. About a third of the student body is a varsity athlete, and we have a Division III athletic program here at Denison. We tend to do quite well in many sports, especially most recently with the swimming and diving teams, which is one of the reasons the pool is on here. So we tend to do very well, and I think that at Denison, it's really great because there's quite a bit of spirit, especially for a school our size. So if you're looking to play on a team that is supported, but maybe at a Division III level, this is a great place. Or if you're not interested in playing, but you like being somewhere where there is a little bit of athletic spirit, but maybe you're not interested in a huge school, this is also a great place. So varsity athletics are one thing. There also are club sports, there are intramural sports. So regardless of if you'd like to participate on a team, there is a place for you to do so. Some other ways that people get involved in athletics at Denison if they're not playing on sports teams. There are lots of classes at the Mitchell Center. So spin classes, Zumba classes. I think there's a bar class that's taught there by students as well. There's a smoothie shop in the Mitchell Center, so people love that. Also, one of the things that I think is kind of cool about Mitchell and Denison generally is that the, excuse me, varsity athletes have their own weight room, which, I didn't used to talk about this, but I think it's important to think about. I'm not sure about if there are people who have already been in college on this call or if it's something you've thought about, but it's nice that they have their own weight room. One, ours is really amazing, as you can see in this picture. But 2, that means you don't have to compete with teams for equipment or time in the weight room. And also, not sure about other people here, but when I was in college, I definitely would get really intimidated. I did not attend Denison. I would get very intimidated when I would walk into the weight room and entire teams were in there lifting heavy, heavy weights. So just, another kind of nice thing about Mitchell, in my opinion, they have their own space. Kind of on the other side of the involvement spectrum, I would say, are the arts. So this is the Michael D. Eisner Center for the Performing Arts at Denison. This is brand new. This opened last year in the fall. Michael Eisner is one of our alums, and he is incredibly generous. This is the new home for theater, music, and dance. And as you can see on this slide, about a third of our students are involved in music ensembles. And, I said we weren't going to talk that much about statistics, but I think that's an important one because, as I mentioned, about a third of the student body is a varsity athlete, and about a third of the student body is involved in music ensembles specifically. And I think that balance is something that's really great. Both athletics and the arts are very, very valued at Denison, in my opinion, and they're thriving. And I think that it's really nice to be at a place where that's the case, because I think at so many institutions, sometimes, one of those might kind of take the lead. while the other kind of falls behind. But at Denison, both athletics and the arts are really incredible. So a little bit about the arts and this space. You know, why would you go down here? Maybe you are involved as a major in theater, dance, or music. Maybe you're not and you're just taking a class. You have access to this space and access to arts groups or performing groups, even if you're not a major. So there, you know, a question that sometimes I've gotten on my information sessions is, well, what if I'm an athlete? Can I take classes in the arts? Absolutely. We want you to take classes across everything. So you can take an acting class, music, you can be in the orchestra if you play an instrument. And so lots of students get involved. Or you might just go and watch something. That's another way you could come down to Eisenhower, excuse me. So a little bit about this space, because it's a really cool space as well. They really left no leaf unturned for this one. The dance floors are heated in this space. There is the stage and then a rehearsal space that's the same size as the stage, which really opens up availability for rehearsals. Lots of other cool pieces of this building, but there are rehearsal rooms that you can use. You can do your homework down here if you want, and it's a great space. Also, if you're kind of just to give you a gauge of like, where am I on Denison's campus right now? If you are looking at the Eisner Center, as we are kind of head on, to the right about a block and maybe a block and a half is Granville, is that main drag of Granville that we showed you, or that I showed you on at the beginning of this presentation. So this is really in Granville. And I think I really love that it's down in the town and it's a part of the town and it's a part of Denison. And we're very, very proud of and very, very excited about this building. Okay. Excuse me, I'm gonna grab a sip of water. So the Austin E. Knowlton Center for Career Exploration. This is really our career center at Denison. And I think there are a couple of pieces that are really worth mentioning. Depending on where you are in your career search, you can get help at Knowlton. You know, some students, I like to say, they come into college and they're not really aware of like, what is an internship? How do I get an internship? I don't have a resume. I've never done an interview. That's fine. There are over 10 advisors in the Knowlton Center and they will help you with all of that. On the other side of the spectrum, if you have your internship or you know what you want to do, maybe you just need some funding. We can help you with that as well. So the Knowlton Center provides quite a bit of funding every year for students who have unpaid or underpaid internships. You know, if you maybe live in California, normally that's where you're from, you attend Denison, and you have an internship offer in Washington, DC for the summer. And it's unpaid, and you're just not going to be able to make that happen because you can't afford to pay for housing in Washington, DC. Well, you can apply for funding through the Knowlton Center, and they'll help you with that. The Knowlton Center is also great for interview prep. It is, you know, basically everything on the career spectrum, they'll help you. A few things that I like to point out about the Knowlton Center, or that students like to point out when I've done this presentation with students. Few things. One, the space itself is really wonderful. And sometimes people think it's funny that I mention the physical space of the Career Center, but this is a really welcoming space where actually students just go and hang out and they do their homework there. This is not a really intimidating place for a lot of students, is what students tell me and what my opinion is when I've seen the space. Also, the number of career advisors that we have at Knowlton is, there are a lot of them. As I said, over 10. I don't know exactly how many are employed today there, but that's quite a few, especially for a school of our size. And also one of the philosophies that they use at Knowlton, the director mentions frequently, that you're not going to be assigned to one advisor and only work with that individual for your 4 years at Denison. You're definitely going to have touch points with multiple advisors there. They think it's really important that students work with a variety of people so that they get the best advice that they can. And so the advice doesn't become biased, because maybe one of your mentors is your career advisor, and they want to make sure other people kind of see your work. And then lastly, this is also where pre-professional advising is housed. So like many liberal arts colleges, Denison does not have a pre-med major or a pre-business major, but we have pre-health advising, pre-law advising, pre-business advising, and pre-engineering advising. And so there are people in Knowlton who work specifically with students who would like to potentially go into those fields after Denison, and they're gonna work with you kind of throughout your whole process. This slide says 9 years of professional advising because 4 years at Denison and then 5 years after. I don't think that we're not the kind of place where, you know, in your 6th year after, if you need some advice or you want to hear maybe about some Denison, alums that are working in a field that interests you, we're going to help you. It's not like 5 years out and we're done. Yeah, that's a little bit about career exploration at Denison. Oh, the last thing I wanted to mention that I forgot was this is also, you know, I talked about the space being a welcoming and warm, open space. That's also how the advisors are. So these are the kinds of advisors that the people that work in Knowlton are going to be out on the quad when there's like an ice cream social. They're going to be out getting to know students so that you feel comfortable going to them really from the very beginning of Denison. We also, I don't know a lot about this yet, but we just launched a new launchpad in Columbus. So the Knowlton Center is going to have a branch in Columbus that's going to be used for a variety of things. To be honest, that is an announcement that came this week, and so I'm still learning a lot about that. But if you have questions, maybe Chris knows more if you want to ask in the Q&A, or we can follow up after. So, again, said I'm not going to talk that much about statistics, but this is an important slide, especially with regards to those statistics. What are our alumni doing after they graduate from Denison? I'm not going to read them to you. You can see them, but I do like to point out, the one I like to point out the most is the one on the right. 97% of alumni are working in their desired field or position or are on their way to achieving their professional goals, which really shows you that we're not just preparing students to get a job after Denison. We're really preparing students to get a job doing what they want to be doing once they graduate from Denison. You know, the alumni base is very strong. We're not, you know, one of the students that I always present with likes to say that he loves going to a small school like Denison with such a strong alumni base and being, you know, if he's on vacation, he'll be at the airport wearing a Denison sweatshirt. And someone, no matter where he is, a lot of the time people point out like, oh, I went to Denison, or I know someone that went to Denison. So this is a smaller than some schools, but a mighty force of alumni, and they really want to help. So whether they will be providing you with internship opportunities or job opportunities after, I think a lot of these statistics are a result of both our program and then also the passion of our alumni. Something that I would encourage you to do if you want to learn more about what our students are doing after Denison is to look up, you know, if you are really interested, let's say in biology, and you want to know specifically what are students who studied biology at Denison doing once they graduate. Well, if you go to our website and you Google Biology Denison, every single program page has an alumni section where they break down these statistics for their program. And so you can get a really good idea of, in this example, where are biology graduates working, where are they going to graduate school, and in what numbers. So I think that's a really great resource for you. Okay, next slide. Before I get to kind of Denison, the admission process, which is clearly important, I want to talk a little more about kind of student life at Denison. I hit relational piece and the mentorship piece, but I think that it's really important that you understand kind of the culture of Denison and what are our students like. So I like to say, when I'm asked, can you describe a typical Denison student? My answer is typically they are very active and very involved. This is the kind of place where with over 160 different student organizations, students are involved in a variety of things. Even by the time they're seniors, you know, if you were to come to a Denison information session and there's a seniors presenting with me or one of my colleagues, they'll list off their involvement, and it is a long, long list still. They haven't kind of gotten bored and fallen off the wayside. There are over 600 leadership positions at Denison. Across those organizations and in other places. And again, this is just a really active campus. This is a place where you walk around and people say hi. When the weather's nice, people spend time outside. And I really love that about Denison students. It's also a place where if you need help, you know, someone will assist you with how to get that help, whether it's the Academic Resource Center at Denison, which is where you can learn, you know, time management skills, or departmental tutoring. You might be able to get a job as a tutor, or if you need help in a department, we can also help you with that. So this is a place where, because we're small, you're gonna know people, and I think it's really nice because people will help you find the resources that you need. So a little bit, also that residential piece is a huge component of our community. So as that first slide said, we're a highly residential campus. There are currently students living on campus now. So traditionally, in a normal non-pandemic year, all students live on campus all 4 years with very few exceptions. And that really means we're not a suitcase school. This is not a school where students are packing their suitcases on the weekends and going home. This is a place where there's a lot going on campus all the time. Okay, so now a little bit about admission. And if you have more questions about student life, Chris is happy to answer them, or I'm happy at the end to answer them. So a little bit about admission at Denison. As you can see here, we are test optional. We have been test optional for over 10 years. So this is not something new with the circumstances that are going on. You can see our admission rate last year was 29%, and we practice holistic review. So as you can see on this graph, about 50% of the admission review, excuse me, are your academic qualifications. So we're gonna look at the transcript and the rigor, so your grades and the rigor of your classes that you took while you were in high school within the context of your high school. If you send us your test scores, we'll use them if they help you, but really don't worry about test scores. It's not something, at least for Denison, that you need to be stressed about, especially now with all of the unknowns that are happening with regards to testing. Our deadline, so that's the first half. And the second half are your personal qualifications. So we will be looking at that activities list. We will be looking at your essay, your recommendations. We also offer optional interviews. So you don't have to interview, but especially now we're offering a lot of virtual interviews, and it's a really great time for an admission representative or a current student to kind of get to know you a little bit, put a face to an application. And also it's a great time for you to ask questions. I know you can ask questions now in a typing form, but I think it helps, or some students, you know, want to ask more specific questions or face-to-face, so you can really get a good sense of who we are as a school as well. So we're going to use both of those in determining your admission qualifications. The deadlines you can see there, the first deadline is our early decision 1 deadline, which is November 15th, and then early decision 2 and regular decision are January 15th. What is early decision? What is regular decision? So early decision is a binding agreement. So if you decide that after you've done all your college research, Denison is the #1 school on your list, you really want to be at Denison, it is your absolute top choice. Early decision might be a good choice for you. If you apply to Denison and you are admitted early decision, that means you are committing to come to Denison. The more traditional, probably, way of applying to college is regular decision. So that's when you apply in January and you're going to hear in March. In March, you'll have all of your college offers and then you'll make a decision then. So that's the difference between early decision and regular decision. We meet 100% of students' demonstrated need as demonstrated by the FAFSA and the CSS profile. We also offer merit scholarships, and an application to Denison is an application for merit aid, so you don't need to apply separately for merit aid at all. We also don't have any supplements. So if you're interested in Denison, it's a pretty seamless process if you're using the Common App or the Coalition app. This is the last slide. If you kind of liked what you heard and you want to hear more about Denison or kind of more specific pieces of Denison, we're going to be offering a variety of webinars throughout the fall on things like pre-professional advising or academics, study abroad at Denison, or kind of global opportunities. So I really recommend that you check out our website if that's something that interests you. I hope that you enjoyed learning a little bit more about who we are at Denison. And if you have any questions, we have a little bit of time, so I'm happy to answer them. If not, thank you so much for coming. And then this final slide is just a great screenshot. It's a beautiful campus. So yeah, if you have any questions, let us know. And if not, thanks for coming. And we hope to see you at one of our webinars or info sessions or on an interview soon. Thank you. Okay, we got a question about does holistic review include interest shown by the applicant? We use demonstrated interest slightly in the review. It's going to be interesting this year. I can't really speak that well. Maybe Chris can, to demonstrated interest in this virtual capacity. But if you're interested in Denison, I really recommend you come check out a webinar. And that's one indication of interest.
Yeah, I think that's the way the demonstrated interest is going to be mostly virtual this year. So check out the website like Caitlin recommended. That would allow you some options there.
Yeah. Chris, do you want to answer what's your favorite school tradition, since you're actually at Denison a lot more than I am?
Well, yeah, sure. One of my favorite school traditions sadly didn't happen this year, but it's the new student convocation. It's where the new class of first-year students is kind of welcomed to campus, and it's like a ceremony. I think most students kind of appreciate it, and it sort of bookended with graduation ceremony 4 years later. So that's one of my favorites. Depends on who you ask. There's a lot of traditions, and students, you know, certainly have their own take on that.
Yeah, sometimes when I don't really know if I have a favorite one, to be honest, because I'm not on campus all that frequently. But the students that I do this presentation with, one of the things that at least two of them have said are Big Red Weekend, which is Big Red Weekend, which is the alumni weekend on campus when a lot of alums come back to campus. And there's a lot of like interaction, a lot of activity on campus. So I think that's what I would say as a favorite tradition that I've heard many times. Okay, so how easy is it to double major? It's quite easy. About a third of the student body concentrates or majors in multiple disciplines. So it's pretty simple. You also don't have to declare your major upon admission. You don't have to declare your major until you're in your second year at Denison. So that process is not that difficult. Okay, what are housing and dining like? Well, housing in your first year, it's a little bit more of like a traditional dormitory style for the most part. And then by senior year, a lot of students, I'm not sure the percentage, maybe you know, Chris, like quite a few of our students are living in senior apartments, so a lot more autonomy by the time you're a senior. And then those 2 years in between, it's a little bit of a mix of suite style living, traditional living, single living. In terms of dining, there are 2 dining halls on campus, and they have different menus, so that's great. And then there's like a third, I'm not sure I would call it a convenience store, but like a grill / convenience store that has kind of pick up and go options. And then there's a coffee shop as well. So there's quite a bit. And then again, the Granville is so close to campus that students, some students find that they go there once in a while with a group of friends, but I think the food is good on campus, and there is variety. There's more than one dining hall, which I think is great. Okay, so
why don't I'll just answer the merit aid question. Mm-hmm. There isn't, I don't know that we actually produce a statistic of how many students receive a merit aid or award, but we do have a lot of merit aid available. Many students do receive a merit scholarship. It's all done with the application for admission, so you don't need to worry about that so much. And then somebody else had asked the question how maybe an outside scholarship might affect a financial aid package. And generally speaking, that goes toward the self-help portion of the financial aid package.
Yeah. Okay, I will answer the question about how would you characterize the political leanings of the student body? So honestly, one of my favorite things about Denison is that it's pretty diverse in a lot of ways, as you can see on the first slide, in terms of where our students come from, in terms of multicultural student life, but also politically, we're fairly diverse. We're a little more balanced than some of our liberal arts peers. So you are most certainly, no matter your political leanings, going to meet someone, probably be friends with someone who has different political views than you are. So I honestly wouldn't characterize it necessarily one way or the other because we're quite a bit more balanced than a lot of our peers. Okay, there's also a question about student athlete kind of course registration. So student athletes, you're a student first at Denison. We're a Division III school, and the coaching staff, as well as the director of athletics at Denison, know that that's the priority. So in terms of like, how do you balance classes? What if you have practice or a lab? Typically what happens, depending on the team, but this is most frequent, is that coaches or the whole team will decide like a lab day. So anyone who has a lab, we're going to have lab day on Thursday, which means practice is going to be a little bit different on Thursday for the team. Sometimes if that doesn't work, you can work with your coach and they'll understand that. But student athletes don't get priority registration for classes, to my knowledge, because this isn't a Division I program and classes really happen all throughout the day. I know a lot of athletes, and most of anyone that I know has never had an issue with registering for classes, because again, the coaches know that you're a student first.
I will say this, that most of Denison's classes do finish before 4. It's just kind of the nature of the structure. So right. Athletes don't normally have too many issues. Once in a while, they may have a lab or something, and right. Typically they work that out with coach, and it's just fine.
Yeah, it's typically fine. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'll answer this one. Is admissions need blind? So we are not need blind, we are need aware, but we meet 100% of students' demonstrated need through grants, loans, and work study. Okay, sorry, I just saw this other question. Is school fully remote until second semester? Actually, no. Denison students moved in starting last week. Classes started yesterday, right? Yes, they started yesterday. So classes are a variety. Some classes are meeting in person. Some classes are only meeting online. But a majority of our student body is on campus right now. There are obviously quite a few modifications, both in and out of the classroom. But right now we are on campus with the option. Some of our students have taken the option to do remote learning. And again, even some of the students who are on campus, their classes are remote, or sometimes they're remote. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, with that, we'll give it maybe a couple more seconds, Chris, for questions.
Oh, yes.
And then
we got just maybe a couple minutes.
Like a couple minutes. And then if you have no questions, feel free to, well, either sit here and look at us, or you can head out. Or if you have questions, we'll sit here. I think we have like another 2 minutes until this is gonna turn off. So it was lovely to chat with you today. And again, please feel free to contact us or ask any questions for the rest. You're welcome.
And yeah, if there aren't any other questions, we all don't have to awkwardly stare at each other. So thank you so much for coming. Thanks again to the presenters for sharing their time with us and all this valuable knowledge. For those who are watching, who are still on, like I said, recordings will be available on our website later on this evening. We have more sessions through this evening, and we hope that you have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. We will ensure that they all get your information. So we thank you for coming and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.